Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to the Legends podcast. And this is a special edition. You'll notice there's no intro or outro to this one because on the back of the murders in Atlanta last week, Nina, who is the founder of Hafu Ladies and who is also the founder of a mastermind for Asian women she's based in Japan, is here today to talk about what has come out of this for her and for her business, what she wants to do, and for Asian women from her perspective. So we're doing this kind of ad hoc, and we're going to talk through what this has meant to her. And as an Asian woman with an Asian mom who lives in America, and you know, it's obviously something that's very close to our hearts. I want to be very clear here that I'm not here to be a do-gooder or to try and put the spotlight on myself. I want to be very, very clear about that. This is going to be handed over to Nina as soon as possible, and we wanted to record this as soon as we possibly could so that we can first of all honor the people who were murdered, and secondly rescue how can I say, not rescue, talk about how this impacted Nina and what came from it for her, and how she's going to take this forward in her, the way she embodies being an Asian woman. So hi, Nina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here today, Sarah. It's always a
You're
pleasure to talk with you.
so very welcome. The first thing I'd like us to do is just to take a moment to honor the 8 people who were murdered last week. So we dedicate this to you. Sun Cha Kim, Yong A.U., Hyun Jae Grant, Soon Si Park, Delana Ashley Yuan, Paul Andre Michels, Zhao Ji Tan, Dao Yo Feng, and Alicius R. Hernandez Ortiz. This is for you, and for anybody else who feels like they would like to claim this for themselves. Okay, apologies for becoming a little bit upset there. It was it just makes me feel incredibly sad. I want to be really clear here as well. We're not here to have a political discussion about this at all. Is that right, Nina?
Yeah,
If it goes in that
we'll
direction.
try not to.
Well,
yeah, whatever that comes out of it, but we will try not to make it political. That's not the core of what we want to talk about today.
and there's enough being said, I think,
Mm-hmm.
by enough people who can say it way more eloquently than certainly than me. I'm sure not you.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes in that direction, then that's fine. But Nina also requested that, because our conversations very often organically grow and have things emerge from them, we're going to take that route as well. So that's the setup for this conversation, and I really hope you can feel that the listeners or people who are watching this can really feel our intention and where we're going with this. It's not confined to just to America or to Canada, because there's been other incidences of Asian mass murders. I think somebody mentioned one in 2004 where one Asian kid killed 3 other Asian kids. But then talking about internalized hatred as well, this is the kind of areas where I've been researching as well. So Nina, I'm going to hand this over to you to just take it however you want to. There was a beautiful post that you wrote on our a group that we're both members of, but it's up to you where you want to take this. So please go ahead.
Thank you. So the shooting just happened last week, and being in Japan, we were a little delayed from hearing about it unless I was online. And the way I found out about it was through my friend who I worked on the mastermind with. She messaged me late at night just saying if I needed space to talk about what happened, to let her know that we can hold that space together. And then I was like, what was happening? So that's when I found out, when I went online, of what happened. And I think, unfortunately, being from the US or growing up in the US and knowing the news, the gun violence isn't anything new. But when it hits close to home like this, when it's people that was, when it was targeted due to race, and that race being someone who I am, who my mother is, who a lot of my friends are, that really, really did hit close to home. And I know the following days, many of my Asian friends, my Hafu friends, especially women, we talked about and it really triggered a lot of um, our own racism that a lot of us faced growing up, whether we're mixed race, Asian or not. Even for myself, my nickname in middle school growing up was just simply Asian. And I didn't think anything of it at the time, but if you think about it, it's ridiculous that that's what a nickname was. And I know that I'm very lucky that I didn't face as much racism as some of my other friends who've told me their stories. But nonetheless, there's a lot of fetishization that has happened around Asian women in all over the world, in media. And this has caused a lot of people to, or the media and the society, to see Asian women as submissive victims, essentially, of other people's power. And so it has, a lot of those emotions has emerged in the last week. I know I put a call out there for my Hafu Ladies community in our safe private group that we have online, to start a thread just so that people can talk with each other and share their stories. And it really brought out a lot of emotions in people. It was really scary and sad to see what our own members have had to face throughout their lives. Um, and on social media, just as it was with Black Lives Matter, all these people are starting to post about hashtag Stop Asian Hate,
Right.
And standing in solidarity, whether it's good or not. I have mixed feelings about it because sometimes it feels very performative to me.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So I just want to cut in here, Nina, and just I'd love you to give a little bit of background here. And there's three things I'd love to give you to give us
mhm,
the background of here. So number one,
mhm,
what's your story
mhm,
racially?
mhm,
What was your you can tell me that however you want.
mhm,
Number two, Hafu Ladies, if you could just tell us a
mhm,
little bit about that. And also, I think it's worth mentioning, especially if you're not listening from inside Japan,
mhm.
the genesis of the word Hafu and how people use that, because it may seem very um,
Foreign to
offensive,
some people.
like very offensive, and also
Yeah,
like a bit weird, but
right.
we should, I think, just cover those three
Sure.
things just as a bit of background. So can you tell us about
Absolutely.
your family story and what your yeah.
Yeah, so I was born in Tokyo to a Japanese mother and American white father, and we moved to the States in 2000 when I was 8 years old. And um, I think I know that for me it was really confusing growing up because uh, I was always pulled in both directions. Am I supposed to act more Japanese, more Asian? Am I supposed to immerse myself in the American culture that I'm part of? And it was this constant push and pull, and sometimes my if my mom and I got into fights, she'd be like, "You're too American," and it's like, "Well, what do you want me to be? I'm living in America."
Yeah.
And as I got older, it's been really wonderful to be able to have more raw conversations with my parents, especially with my mother about her experience and some of the things, saying, she was just dropped in America, never having lived there, not knowing anything about it, and just being told to raise this child and have take care of a family, and she had no idea. There were no rules, there was no one else helping her through that. And I know that she herself faced a lot of racism due to not knowing the language as well. um, I remember we had an exchange student from Brazil staying with us when I was in middle school, and my mother would make us Japanese food, and the exchange student didn't really understand it. To her, it was too foreign, and she didn't like it, and that's okay. She was only 17 as well. She was only a teenager as well, but I know that really hurt my mother.
Mhm.
Um, and I know that's not an uncommon story for a lot of Asian families in America. Their white neighbors telling them their food is stinky, or it's gross, things like that. And it is heartbreaking. And that, unfortunately, is something that a lot of us have faced. I remember my mom used to make me bento lunches when I started going to a public high school, and the other kids, I was a new kid, so there was already high stakes in trying to fit in, but some of the kids would tell me my food is gross or stinky, and after a while, I think I just started eating the cafeteria lunch, which was just pizza every day. Not healthy, but a way to assimilate into the culture.
So I have something to ask you about here. So in the post that you posted on the group that we're both
Hmm.
members of,
Hmm.
you mentioned about being white passing. I'm just
Hmm.
interested. Can you just tell us what that means?
Yeah. So I used to use the term white passing, and nowadays, from what I can tell, it seems it's better to use white presenting.
Ah, okay. I beg your
Yeah,
pardon. I beg
yeah.
your pardon. Oh yeah.
That's
Okay.
okay. That's okay, because yeah,
White
passing is
presenting.
like, oh, you're good enough. You look enough white that you
Yeah.
can pass for one of us, sort of
Yeah.
connotation.
Yeah.
And then for me, I am white presenting because I can blend in with white people. I am half white. Though often in America people think I'm Hispanic,
Yeah. Because
or
your name's
just
Cataldo.
can't,
Yeah.
yeah, I just can't tell what I am. um, but enough so I don't look Asian enough that people will pin me as Asian 100% of the time. So sometimes when we're talking about Asian American experience or the Asian immigrant experience as well, I don't know where I fall in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I'm allowed to be scared and worried as much as my uh, fully Asian friends who live in the US or otherwise.
So that's another layer of, how would you describe that?
It's
Stress, ambiguity, another thing to think about if you're.
it's almost like I sometimes have a feeling of imposter syndrome, but then I have to bring myself back and check myself and say, no, I have still been discriminated for my Asian cultural aspects and heritage that I uphold and my family has upheld. Um, and um, in Japan as well, and in America as well, have experienced the fetishization, and people saying this and this because you're Asian and whatnot.
Hmm. And yes, because you get it from both sides, right? It's
Hmm.
neither here nor there.
Hmm.
Kind
Hmm.
of thing. Interesting. So that brings me to, let's address the term hafu first. Can you
Hmm.
just tell me what
Yeah.
hafu means and how you have claimed that,
Hmm.
or how that works out?
Hmm. So the term Hafu is widely used. It's historically comes from Japan, in the sense that technically it comes from the word half in English, which then is translated into Japanese, which sounds like Hafu, and it means for people who are half Japanese. And especially for people post-war, it was quite a derogatory term. And so as a generational difference, a lot of the older mixed race Japanese, half Japanese people, they find it to be much more triggering or offensive. And for some people in my generation as well. In saying that, I grew up not using that word. My parents didn't use that word. I was a child in the 90s, so that's when the term "daburu," double, was coined as the correct one, which is also problematic in itself. And Hafu, a lot of us now have reclaimed that meaning. For me, I when I returned to Japan when I was 23, I didn't really feel like I belonged. To me, I was coming home. I was coming back to my motherland, and yet everyone here greeted me as a foreigner, as an other sort of being. And it wasn't until 2 years after I moved here that I discovered that there is a whole community for half Japanese, mixed race Japanese people, the Hafu community. And that's when I started really taking pride in my identity and knowing that there are others that I can relate to and understand. Yeah, and so to me, it's a term of pride. And again, I can't speak for everybody in our community, but for me, that's what it is. And I know from some others that I've talked to, they really, where they grew up, they really didn't have any term to call themselves. And when they came to Japan and found that term, they finally felt like they understood themselves better and where they belonged in a good way. So I think that's really empowering. I think there's a lot of positivity that comes with that term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were in this Hafu community and you saw an opportunity there, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
What happens next?
Yeah, so there's quite a few Hafu community groups online, on Facebook mostly, and a lot of people that get together, especially before COVID, getting drinks, whatnot. But there were times when I felt like I wanted to ask questions, pose questions to the group, or have discussions that related more to something that only came out of being a woman or for women to be able to relate to. And I really didn't feel comfortable being able to have those conversations in groups where parents of mixed race Japanese kids were and men were.
Yeah.
And
It's not going to be a thread like women's thread.
yeah,
They've got their
exactly.
eyes on it. Yeah, sure.
So I knew that there had to be a community for us women to stick together. And since there wasn't one, I created one. And um it's been 2.5 years now, and we have over 1,200 members worldwide.
Wow.
And
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it's been absolutely an empowering group. It really did start off with just simply talking about our makeup and dating life and whatnot, but it has blossomed into a space where we can educate ourselves, educate each other, be able to have raw discussions without judgment. Truly a safe space. And I know that a lot of members have come to me to thank me for creating that space, and I always feel very humbled because it started with me coming up with the idea, but obviously it would be nothing if it just remained just me. So it's amazing to see how everyone in the group has taken on the group and the leadership together and have made it into what we have today.
Yeah, but I'd also like to, I completely understand what you mean about being humbled, because a group is only as good as its members. On the other hand, I think that I would like to honor you in saying, and this is something that somebody said, if you remember, at the end of last year, we had a gratitude session, and I can't remember who it was now, but somebody said, Nina, you've got the X factor. And I cannot stress enough how true that is, that you do have the X factor, the it factor, that
Mhm.
like thing that magnetizes people to you. And I don't want you to underestimate that by any means whatsoever. Now, of course, when a group becomes that big, you need like layers of help and
Mhm.
people to bring it together. But it does take for somebody to spark it and to
Mhm.
magnetize people towards them, and then to keep that going. And I know there's been times when you've had to put your foot down and stop all kinds of stuff going on within your group, including anti-Black racism and all kinds of things. We've had all kinds of conversations about that, but that's
Mhm.
not for today. What we're talking about today is, I'd be interested to know actually, from your Hafu Ladies group, what is 3 common themes that come up that are either uniquely Asian or uniquely Hafu,
Hmm. 3 common themes.
or 3 kind of
I th-
things that often come
yeah,
up for people?
I think a huge one is language.
Uh,
There's the stereotype, especially in Japan, that if you're mixed race, then you quote unquote obviously speak English,
yeah.
or that you know both of your parents and know both of your countries. And those are quite more uncommon, I think. There's a lot of people who only speak Japanese or speak only another language that's not English or Japanese. A lot of people who only know one of their parents, who've only ever lived in one country, whether that is Japan or the other country, or a completely different one as third culture kids. And so there's just so much diversity within the community that there's no one way that a Hafu person is.
Right.
And in saying that, even with all of that, everyone is tied to the common factor that we all have some roots to being Japanese. And so for people who don't speak Japanese, it's a huge complexity. And that's a common theme that has come up with people saying, "Oh, can I join the group? I don't speak Japanese," or um, like, "I never felt like I could claim my Japaneseness because I don't speak the language or never been to Japan," things like that. So that's a huge aspect of our community. Um,
So do you allow everybody, like, do you make this a very, very welcoming and open space for everybody to be Hafu in their unique way?
Absolutely. And I know that I've had my own struggles trying to make it as bilingual as possible. I know that, again, English and Japanese aren't the only languages that are common, but those are the two that at least I can do. And from the help of others, make posts as bilingual as possible. I tend to gear my own. I can express myself better in English, so sometimes I have issues with that, but I do ask for help. And I want it to be I want it to become more of an accessible group for people who are monolingual as well.
So this kind of leads us into, um, I would say, I mean, you called this a microaggression, but I would call it an aggression that you
Mm,
experienced last week. Um,
mhm,
it seems like a good pivot point to me, Nina. If you disagree, then please take it in a different direction.
mhm. Yeah, so last week, in the midst of everything going on in the United States, I experienced what was one of the rather worse harassments I've experienced in Japan. Or anywhere, I guess. I was out to dinner with two of my friends, two guys who are white Americans, who have both lived in Japan a long time, who understand Japanese. And yeah, we were out, and uh, these women came up to us originally because they wanted to chat to the boys. Sure, whatever. But very quickly, the attention came to me when I said something in Japanese, and the woman who was speaking to me said, "Oh, and this is all happening in Japanese. Oh, your Japanese is so good." And I just say, "Oh, I'm Japanese." And it's really interesting to
Which is
see.
true.
It's just true.
Yeah.
There's nothing about that. And then it's really interesting to see how people react to that, because being told that my Japanese is good is something that happens on a daily basis. Um, and so when I said that, she asked if I was Jun Japa, which means pure Japanese. And I always answer, I answer differently depending on where I see the environment going.
Okay.
So,
So I just
mhm,
want to say here, that's emotional labor right
yeah,
there, Nina. I've I've got goosebumps now thinking about that, because you having to constantly assess
mhm,
how you can answer that question,
mhm,
whether it comes from whatever background somebody is, that's emotional labor right there. It
mhm,
reminds me of code switching that
mhm,
Black Americans talk about.
yeah,
Do,
yeah,
does this seem
absolutely.
relatable?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And the
So I
fact that
want
I
to
have,
honor that.
thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can tell that if someone, well, I could tell that if she's already accusing me of not being pure Japanese or questioning that, then it's already a hostile situation. And so I don't need to, she's not coming at me truly curious. She's not coming at me in a way that she wants to converse with me. If it was a different situation, if someone asked me if I was Hafu, I'd be happy to say that. Um, but the way she worded it, I didn't want to explain to her, "Oh, my dad's white and blah blah blah." That's not her business. So I just said, "I'm Japanese." That's a fact. I didn't say I'm pure Japanese, whatever the crap that means. And so I just said I'm Japanese, and I'm gonna leave it at that. And then she kept calling me a liar. She announced to the whole room that, oh, this girl thinks she's Japanese. Um, and just kept just digging at me, even after we were like, please leave us alone. We're just, enjoying a night. Um, and then she said, no, but I'm questioning it because you're pretty. And I'm like, that's not a compliment. Uh, Japanese people are pretty as well. Everyone's pretty. But, she's like, no, but you're different. You're not the Japanese type looking. And however else the conversation was, she just kept digging at it. And about 10-15 minutes into the conversation, she finally kind of left us alone, and we just decided to leave the place. And she blocked the doorway and uh, saying, "Oh, we should hang out again." Or thinking, "No way, no!" The audacity to even ask or say that. It's just like everyone in the room could tell that this person was making me uncomfortable. My friends were uncomfortable. And we left, and I didn't hear this, but my friend heard her say behind after we left, the girl's like, "Oh, that girl's so not Japanese," and just continue to do that. My friends are shocked and asked if I endure that often, and to that scale, not as often, but very similarly, yes, very often. I've had people I
Friends
being
as well, right? Or
Mhm,
acquaintances too. And I
mhm,
know you've described that to me before.
mhm. Yeah, and it's I've done this in workshops I've held before, but when else, like, how often do people get questioned for when they answer where they're from or what their ethnicity is? Not like I think the fact that so many of us mixed race people or third culture kids or whatnot have to are doubted of who we are by complete strangers or people who just recently meet us. It's just exhausting, and it's yeah, it's just exhausting. It's frustrating. It's just like, why would I be lying about that? I'm not playing around here. It's a
Yeah,
simple question.
I'm a fully grown woman. And I think
Yeah.
crucially, what I take away from this is that, well, there's two things: curiosity. So it's interesting, as you say, if somebody's truly curious. But
Mhm.
what I'm even thinking now to myself is like, my curiosity can actually take a back seat
Mhm.
for your relaxation. Like, it's just none of my business. It's not my even if I'm curious, it's not my business. And
Mhm.
that's not to take away from people who are curious, because you've just talked about that. But what I'm taking away is it just isn't my business. Like,
Yeah.
it's not my business. There's so many other things I could compare it to, but I want to keep it to this. I would like to keep it to this particular subject topic, and keep it in very much in the ballpark of the Asian experience here, Nina.
Mhm.
I'm sorry you had to deal with that. That's horrible, and I know it's not the first time that that kind of things come up for you. However, something amazing came out of it.
Mhm.
But I want to wait for that because I want to ask you something else. So
Okay.
you are at the moment a DEI specialist, a diversity, equity and inclusion specialist, and you've started to give workshops and you approach it from the Hafu experience, which I think gives an awful lot of richness. As I've mentioned, I have pulled away from DEI or D&I completely for now,
Mhm.
until I feel that I've got a richer experience of that, because
Mhm.
reasons. So
Mhm.
reasons which I think are implicit anyway. There's just reasons. I just feel like I need to beef up on that a little bit more. Although if I get onto the board of directors of a certain organization, I am going to be on their DEI because they need a person like me on there to shake
Mm.
it up.
Great.
Okay. So my question to you is this: from the Asian experience, what is missing in DEI? I mean, I don't even know where to begin
That's
on.
a big question. I guess it could differ from place to place. I think the first thing that comes to mind for me that I've also have been thinking about the last week is everyone's saying the Asian American experience, the Asian American experience. And not to divide anyone up, but I think there is a huge difference also between the Asian immigrant experience and the Asian American experience.
Okay.
And I think there needs to be more stories told of all of those Asians that are encompassed in the different paths that we take. There's a lot of people that have worked so hard to immigrate to another country
Yeah.
and start a new life there, not knowing the culture, not knowing the language. Um, and there are people who were born in, for example, in the United States, but because of and feel fully American, but are othered because of their physical Asian looks. I think there needs to be, yeah, there needs to be more understanding of what the diversity within all of the Asian people in these communities and what they face and how they can differ, where they intersect, and how as a whole we can all be supportive and there for each other no matter what the each individual stories look like.
Because it is different, and it's, I don't know. I'm starting to feel quite uncomfortable right now, so I'm going to
Mm.
just name that right now. Because
Mhm.
number one, Asia is massive,
Yeah.
hugely diverse.
Mm.
In the UK, when we mention Asian, we actually mean Bangladeshi,
Mhm.
Pakistani, Indian. But even just saying that makes me feel deeply uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Um, um, for whatever reason, but I'm just noting that. um I don't know. Yeah, anyway. um and then we call and then there's Chinese people.
Mhm.
All right, and
Mhm.
they've been, the Chinese communities are in every city in every part of the world anyway, so just part of the fabric of any city.
Mhm.
So there is this diverse experience going on here. I feel really out of my depth talking about this now, Nina, but it
Mhm.
just feels very, I think what's happening here is the system of America and the system of in the UK kind of colonialism
Mhm.
is being revealed quite strongly. And
Mhm.
this, what happened last week, is surfacing some.
Mhm.
So I'm just talking about it from a systems coaching perspective. It's really
Mhm.
surfacing and revealing something completely almost ignored. It's
Mhm.
almost like, tell me where I'm wrong, that this experience has been almost invisible, um, from, I mean, I don't know. I can only think of really stupid stereotype things like the Karate Kid, or or like, or the odd person who shows up in a show here or there or
Mhm,
something, or or Apocalypse Now, or
mhm.
all these places where these um I feel like I need to hand over to you here.
I
Uh,
think, yeah, I think one of the things that um, that we start to recognize with what happened was there's still a massive divide between races, in when we're talking about Asians and non-Asians, I guess. But like you said, like in every city, every country, there's a Chinatown. Or in like Seattle, for example, we have an international district, which is encompassing all many different Asian communities that kind of coexist together. Um, and For example, my cousins, my American cousins, are also half Japanese, and they grew up mostly in Minneapolis, and Minneapolis has a huge uh, Somalian and Hmong community. So Hmongs are Asians, and I know that a lot of people in Minnesota say, but Minneapolis has the biggest population of Hmong people outside of Asia. We're diverse and we respect their culture, and it's like, no, they're still kind of in their own area, and it's not fully immersed within the larger city. And I think there's just such a divide in that sense, and so people don't feel a sense of unification, or like uh not even coexisting, because I don't really like that word, or cohabitating, I don't like that word either, but like really immersed within each other's communities and cultures, and diverse in that sense. There that still doesn't exist.
no. And why should it, to some degree? I don't know
Mm,
how to describe that, but
yeah.
how, I don't have people coming around here for fish and chips on the daily. I don't, that's a really stupid thing to say, and I'm sure it's just upset people. I apologize. I'm kind of I'm at the edge of my kind of my knowledge at the moment, if you like.
Mhm, mhm,
Um, I'd like to kind of pivot at some point, but I also want to note, and this kind of relates to what we're talking about here,
mhm,
and back to kind of what I just mentioned about invisibility, or just kind of, oh, there's that as well. Oh, it's
mhm,
not, this is a racist issue too, but
mhm.
that these people were considered to be disposable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth mentioning that a lot of them were sex workers as well, and that's what their profession was. And just so there's just so many layers of disposability
Yeah.
through their
Yeah.
what's been revealed over the last, I'd say last year, but it's been many, many years in the making, and it's only been revealed to the people who didn't know it. So it's 400 years in the making, 500
Mhm,
years in the making.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, so based on this kind of invisibility and this sense of not holding power, and this sense of, what was the hashtag you mentioned earlier?
Um, Stop Asian hate.
Stop Asian hate. You had
Yeah.
an epiphany, is that right?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
after,
go ahead.
yeah, after experiencing the harassment last week, I left the place and kind of went to bed really frustrated. And one side of me is like, oh, I wish I could have punched that person. Obviously not the right answer or the right move, and I didn't do it.
Oh,
But
punch the person who was
yeah, who was
being
talking to
hostile,
me.
is your word. Yeah.
Yeah. And another part of me is like, I wish I spoke up, and I was just kind of frozen in the moment. But with that in mind, and then the other aspect being that after the shooting last week, everything's on social media, and people are hashtagging stop Asian hate, or suddenly, you know have coming up with lists of 5 Asian women owned businesses to to support and things like that. I was or like talking about the fetishization of Asian women in media and such. I was like, where are the stories of the Asian women who are breaking out of those stereotypes and breaking out of the mold? Like, where can I hear their stories? Why aren't those being talked about right now? Well, in saying that, I know there's a lot of hurt that's going on. It's not the time to just be quote unquote positive. Let's just focus on the positive things. Let's just celebrate. I know that's not the right move, but I think there is also still an importance of telling um, our power and our brevity and our strength amidst situations like this, because I would be lying if I said Asian women are some of the most resilient women I've met in my life.
And as if like, I mean, we live in Japan, and but I mean that's not just like it's just normal for there to be powerful people around.
Yeah.
Like this lens through which we look at things is so weird sometimes, isn't it,
Mhm.
Nina? Because
Mhm.
like, oh, surprise, there are powerful people out there. There are powerful Asian women out there, powerful Asian men out there. Surprise,
Mhm.
like really? I don't know.
It
I
shouldn't
don't,
come as a
I
surprise,
don't
but
know.
yeah,
Well,
but so yeah, in the midst of scrolling through social media, I was like, I wonder if there's anything out there if I looked for hashtag powerful Asian women.
mhm.
Literally only one account, one person uh, who uses the hashtag regularly. Even on the even just amidst that, like not a lot of people using the hashtag, less than 1,000 posts on a platform that has millions and millions and millions of people.
Mhm.
And hashtag powerful Asian woman, singular, only 2 posts, and those are your podcasts.
But
And
I added them after you called me in.
right. And
I
it
added them
yeah.
after you called me in.
So the fact that it was 0 was just like, it seems like a maybe if I look more deeply at, strong Asian women or whatnot, there could
Yeah,
be
but strong has a
variety.
different, sorry to interrupt you, Nina, but I want to
Yeah.
say strong has a different kind of thing. Oh, you're so strong. It's like you're constantly struggling.
Yeah.
Powerful is like,
Owning
and
it.
that's it. Yeah, exactly. It's owning it. It's like somebody says to me, "Oh, Sarah, you're so strong." It's like great, powerful. It feels different. It feels like
Yeah.
something different. It's like an ownership. It's like something that's
Yeah.
inherent, or I don't know how to describe. Guess what? There are people out there, Asian women out there, who are just bloody brilliant and not
Mhm.
struggling or have to be strong or
Mhm.
resilient or any of this kind of stuff. And you said resilient, and that's fine too. But it's just
Mhm.
like,
This is different.
hello,
Yeah, and
bro.
I was just
I mean, come on, really?
yeah, I was just so shocked by yeah, how that was lacking. And I
Yeah.
felt like now is the time to tell those stories, and circling it back to um Hafu Ladies, I posted about the thread, this is a safe thread, this is a safe space. We can talk about how this past week's shootings have affected us. How are you feeling? Checking in. People started telling their own stories and their own experiences, and without giving away anything about anyone, someone told their really triggering, really scary experience they lived through. But at the end of her comment, she said, "But I know I'm more than the fetishized person people saw me as, because I'm hashtag a powerful Asian woman." And I was literally like in tears. Like
I've got
I
goosebumps.
was like, she's owning it. Like she's owning it. Like, um, regardless of how much that catches on, I was like, this touched this one person in the moment. And like that in itself was so powerful in itself. So I think there's an importance in talking about the power that we hold, the yeah, the things that we have accomplished and continue to accomplish, especially regardless of how society has portrayed us. And I hope that that's a narrative that we can continue to tell. And it's truly what I've learned from you, Sarah, and coaching is turning our victim stories into our hero stories. And this was a moment when I was like, oh, like this is really like part of my hero narrative, and could be part of a lot of people's heroic narratives as well.
Yeah, I love it. I'm just, it's really starting to settle in for me what that means. And there's a time and a place, back to not your fucking business. It's nobody else's business, but within that safe space for people to say, this happened to me, it sucked, but I'm a powerful Asian woman, and that's what you can take out into the world. There's no need to be vulnerable or play that whole card, because that's already the kind of default thinking, perhaps, of many people outside of Asia, of course, because in Asia, all women are allowed to be all the different kinds of things that they get to be, right? Like our governor Koike, or or the former prime minister of India, or like the everybody gets to be all the things. So yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? And I love how you are very, again, within a very safe space, worked this through. So this is a space that we're both members of, not the Hafu Ladies, because of course that's not my space, but a space where we're both members, and work this through. And actually it's caught on a bit, especially with some of the active members in that group have reposted your posts and taken your call in. What are the 3 words that you've really claimed for this feeling, Nina?
That Asian women are strong, brave, and powerful.
Love it.
Yeah, I posted it on social media, and this one person with a few dozen thousand, is that how you say, like 10,000 followers or something, she reposted it, and I was like shocked to see that. And so many people reposted it, and I just loved seeing that so much, and I really hope that it does catch on a bit. Again, a hashtag isn't going to change the world, but
it can.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes, it can. And the leadership that you're showing, and the ownership that you're taking, and that turnaround that you did overnight is to me is more powerful than any. If I was posting the Stop Asian Hate, or what hashtag, or getting involved in that way, because I take my cue from the people who are on the receiving end of the shit, right? I don't take my cue from myself. I can't trust myself. I was raised in England, so I need to be able to I need to humbly and powerfully, actually, this is an empowered move for me. This is not me being a victim or being bullied by people. It's like, I need to hand over that to somebody else. And if I'm called in by somebody to do that, then that's like, okay, this makes sense to me. It's not performative. It's important. That's all I can say. It feels important, and it feels like something that needs to be done again and again and again. And this hashtag, I think, is something that I would love to see take off. And then you've got millions of hashtags, but not only that, Nina, this is a moment for you as well. This is a moment for you. And it's a moment because you've taken something culturally where people are seen as victims, and you're turning that around in some way or other. Hopefully with that ripple effect that will ripple out into the world. This is a moment where you're showing great leadership, great bravery, great evolution of something really, which could really be like, you could plug into that in a really I don't want to say victimy way, because
but I could be sulking in what
you could
happened,
be
or
sulking, or and so on, but you've turned it around. And because I want to be very clear here that when I say victimy there, I mean victimy. it's not the right word, because sometimes people are victims. The victims of the shooting are victims. Their family are victims. When people are treated like that, they are
Yeah.
victims. It's real victims, not sulky victimhood. I don't know how, again, find myself clumsy and at a loss for what to say. In the last
I
Legends conversation I had, we talked about this. Sometimes you are a victim,
Yeah.
and sometimes you're not. You're just telling yourself the story that you are to
Yeah.
feel better somehow. But what you've done is taken something which is actually in play and
Mhm.
turned it around to something that makes sense for you and your sisters.
Yeah. And like with what happened to me last week, again, people doubting where I'm from or what my ethnicity is, that's nothing new. And a lot of most of the people in my mixed race Hafu community have faced that. But it's how we respond to that. People can say, oh, it happens, it's normal. Or people can step up and say, well, let's freaking change that. Let's educate people. Let's stand up for ourselves and hopefully pave the way for next generations to not even have to go through what we did. It's not shogunai, it can't be helped.
Shogunai is a popular, a very, very well used, very useful Japanese phrase.
It
Shogunai means shit
can't be
happens,
helped.
can't be helped.
Yeah.
Never mind. It means a
Yeah.
whole slew of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it is sometimes helpful, but it also makes me mad because
Yeah.
there's a lot of times you can actually change it.
Oh, well, people behave like that towards you because you're half Shogunai. It's like, no, not Shogunai. I'm not having that one. Is that
Yeah,
what you mean?
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And even if just one person gets the message, that's absolutely brilliant. So so then one of the ways that you are embodying, and this was in play before, one of the
Mhm.
ways that you are embodying this powerful Asian woman, new archetype, not new, archetype that you are now bringing into view,
Mhm.
is through this mastermind that you are doing. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about that? Because I want to be very clear for anybody who's listening or watching this, this is not as a result of this, because guess what? Powerful Asian women were in play before, just so you know. So you have had this kind of calling from the Hafu Ladies to set up a mastermind of people who are really serious about taking their life and business forward. So why don't you
Mhm.
tell us a bit more about that, Nina?
Yeah. So, um, it, it's been in the works for since end of last year or so, since end of 2020. My friend Christy and I think it's okay to say her name.
Of
Christy and
course.
I, she's Asian American. We met through in community events for Nikkei Japanese people in
What's
Japan.
Nikkei, by the way?
So Nikkei is Japanese descendant people in other countries. I don't know if that's the official definition, but there's a lot of Nikkei Brazilians who are Japanese Brazilian who are born and raised in Brazil, for example.
Yeah.
So Christy moved back to the States and she and I kept in touch and we both have always really been there for each other, and between the two of us we've just had such a great time supporting each other through our endeavors, and basically both of us being within our first 5 years of launching our own careers, businesses. She just started her own company last year, and I went freelance last year and building up to that as well. So uh we have felt so much energy and power from just the two of us working together, and we were like, this is brilliant. Like, why don't we do this with a bigger group? Why there needs to be more support for Asian women like us, and especially because in a lot of spaces that are there are tons of groups for successful female entrepreneurs and coaching. Even Christy's a coach as well, and in her program of 200 plus women, or 200 plus people, she's literally just maybe one handful of Asian people. And I think a lot of us Asian women, maybe because traditionally, culturally, there's a stereotype of a lot of our families wanting us to go in a more stable career direction, whatnot. It's really hard to break that mold and be in a space where first we feel comfortable being ourselves as Asian women,
Mm-hmm.
and especially if we don't have that knowledge or support from family or people around us. It's really, there's just something super powerful about being in a space where we can relate on not just like professional business level, but on a uh, cultural level, as well as an identity level as well. And we really wanted to create that program for people like ourselves, women like ourselves, and hold each other accountable, help each other leverage our businesses or passion projects, turn that into business, and also have a sisterhood of people that we can talk with and relate to. So if yeah, so we're just really, really, really excited. We've literally been working tirelessly on this program for months. We like some weeks we just didn't sleep. She's in California, I'm in Japan, and we were both up at just odd hours and just like, go to sleep. Why are you going to sleep? I'm just too excited. And we're
Yeah.
just working away on this program together. And so we're really, really excited to deliver this. It's called Brave and Bold Mastermind.
Brave and
And
Bold Mastermind.
yeah, so we want to help people be more brave, courageous, and bold in the direction they're heading with their businesses, with their lives, and be able to lean in on each other as well. One of
And
the things that,
Asian women, right?
mhm, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for Asian women, and uh, it's not it's not specific to any industry, but we're really hoping that each person that is in our cohort, and we're limiting it to 6 people max
Yeah.
for this first cohort. We're really hoping that each person can bring something to the table that they can give back into the community, into our group, as well as take away from the group. So I know this is something that Sarah, you told me, and it really stuck with me with masterminds, is you're only going to get as much as you put into it.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, you still have to put in the work
Yeah.
to get shit done.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see when we did some info sessions what people think of what a mastermind is. And you know, we will have resources, we will have guest speakers, we will have accountability check-ins, but at the end of the day, it's not us handing you the answers
Not
to
school.
take it to the next level. And that's something I've learned as well. And so I'm really excited to see what comes out of it. And we're really hoping that the cohort can become really close with each other to a point where maybe some of the people will end up working together in different ways and whatnot. And whatever that emerges out of it is very something that we're looking forward to.
I mean, that often and always happens. I mean, you know, people will appear on other people's podcasts and stuff like that. We're talking about book projects, but I don't want to go too much further into that right now, because we're both incredibly creative and exciting people, and both leaders as well, and both strong, brave, powerful women.
Mhm.
And 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 it's inevitable. It's inevitable that people start to influence or collaborate together in situations like that, because there's just, I don't know, there's just so much opportunity for it, and it's also a new and exciting way to do capitalism too. That certainly needs an overhaul, which is amazing. So is there anything else you want to say about that? Like, where can people find what's the website for that? Because I would just love if you were able to attract some people to that who were really good fit, and also who are willing. It's not just putting the work in. It's like, in a mastermind, you don't want any drag either. It's like, it's fine to
Mhm.
talk about what's bugging you or something like that, but then it has to be iterative. That's what I find with my masterminds is I want it to be iterative. I don't want any drag in it. I want it to be elevating. If somebody's having a bad day, that's completely fine, but you don't create drag in the group as a result of it. What we do is we kind of gather around that person and try and like problem solve for them, and we all benefit from that activity, that kind of thing. I don't know. I find masterminds really exciting. What's like, where do we find you for that?
Yeah, so we have a website. It's actually christymarico.wixsite.com. Christy created it for us. Thank you. /Brave Bold 2021.
/Brave Bold 2021. So if somebody put into a Google search Christy Brave Bold 2021, it would probably come up.
I think so. Let me do it right now.
Well, it will definitely come up on yours because your algorithms give.
That's true.
Or how do people join Hafu Ladies?
Hafu Ladies, we have a Facebook group, and that is facebook.com/Hafu Ladies for the public page people can follow us on. And then from there, you can find our private group as well. And I'm still working on the website, but it's coming along.
Coming along. All right.
Yeah.
And because this is how things emerge, and this is how things evolve, and this is how things move forward. The seeds are planted at some point, and then it becomes something else, and it gathers momentum, and and so it has its own time, right? It has its own life. These things have their own times and life. I'm interested to know if you want to give a shout out to anybody, you're a strong Asian woman. I mean, you've told us about your baby before. It was your grandma who recently passed away, aged 100, was she, or 99?
She was 99. Her 100th birthday was just 2 weeks ago. So she was just 2 months short of that.
And she was an artist, and she was cool.
Yeah, she's awesome. Shout out to my mom, my aunt, my aunties. They're really powerful people. And they don't always voice it, but they do so much backstage for our families. And again, I'm always amazed by the life that my mom and my dad created together for us moving to the United States, for my mom really not knowing anything about living in the US and starting from scratch in that sense. And I still go to her for all my advice, and I know they sit around and like listen to my live streams and podcasts with our cat. So yeah. And shout out to just everyone in Hafu Ladies community, all the allies that have been there for us as well.
I think you just hit on something there, Nina, and we could talk about this all day as well, which is they don't always voice it. And that is one of the things I think that is so important to understand, that strong does not necessarily mean loud or vocal or verbal. And that paradox of things are different this side of the world, and it's beautiful and interesting and strong and powerful. And I don't say that with curiosity. I live here, my life, and it's not some exotic, strange thing. It's just another way to do life. It's another way to do life where the silences are as important as the words.
Exactly.
And that doesn't mean that people are kind of submissive, quiet women or men at all, not at all. So beautiful. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you would like to say?
We covered a lot today. And I have my own lived experience, but I know that my experience isn't everybody's experience. So I want to thank you for holding me in this space, and I hope maybe our conversation helps spark other conversations uh, around the world, in Japan, wherever as well. And my heart really goes out to the people who have been hit really hard with the recent tragedy, and knowing that hate crime against Asians have been increasing in the last year, but it's nothing new. And unfortunately, we probably will continue to see a lot of this happen. And also, Black lives still matter.
Yeah.
All of us, all of the people who are in marginalized communities, exploited communities, um, everybody is hurting. So I just want to hold everybody in our hearts, and I hope that we can find ways to stand in solidarity and see some change in this world for real.
Yeah. Thanks, Nina. So to close out, I just think that was beautifully put, and I'd just like to now honour the families of Sun Cha Kim, Yong A Yu, Hyun Jae Grant, Soon Si Park, Delana Ashley Yuan, Paul Andre Michaels, Zhao Ji Tan, Dao Yo Feng, and wish a speedy recovery to Elcius R. Hernandez Ortiz. I hope you all heal from this, feel better in your grief, and really, really sorry for your loss. Nina, thank you for taking the time out today and letting me hold you here in my terribly clumsy but well-meaning fashion. And hopefully, this can be of use to somebody somewhere. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you so much.